Let's talk about how to correctly pronounce 25 major US cities. And what I'm going to do is I will give you really the standard American pronunciation for these cities. Some of these cities will have more of a regional pronunciation, which I will talk to you about. I'm going to give you both the IPA and phonetic spelling so that you can actually see the pronunciation. And we're going to move from the west and go east. If this is your first time here, let me introduce myself. My name is Wes. The channel is Interactive English. It's all about helping you improve your fluency. If that's what you'd like to do, please subscribe, turn on notifications so that you will learn about future lessons. Let's begin with our first city, which is Honolulu. This is the capital of Hawaii, and this, at the beginning, you are going to pronounce this H, and the second syllable has that schwa, that sound. Hana, and the third syllable is the one that's stressed, Honolulu, Honolulu. Then we have Juneau. So this city is the capital of Alaska. Has two syllables, the first one stressed, but I really wanted to point out that second syllable because it's going to be pronounced with a long O, Juneau. So keep this in mind. When you see a word that ends with that EAU, you're going to pronounce it with a long O, Juneau. Next is Seattle. And I chose this city. I think this is very important because those two T's, you're going to pronounce them as a flap T. And the flap T, it's very distinct in an American pronunciation, and it really just sounds like a soft D, Seattle. And the reason that we use the flap T is because it comes before a dark L, Seattle. And that just means that that L, that final L, it's not going to be released. When you say it, the end of the word, your tongue is still going to be touching the top part of your mouth, Seattle, Seattle. Then we have Portland. This is the largest city in Oregon, has two syllables, and there are a couple things that I wanted to point out. You're going to have a stop T, Portland, which means that the air is not going to be released. And also in that second syllable, you may have noticed, as you heard me say this, that I'm dropping the D. Even though the phonetic spelling and the IPA, they include the D, when you say this, you're going to drop the D. And this is common. This happens when the D follows an N. Portland. Before we continue, I would like to thank the sponsor of today's lesson, which is Skillshare. And let me tell you a little bit about Skillshare because this is a great way for you to improve your pronunciation, your vocabulary, and other skills as well. Because Skillshare is an online learning community where you can take thousands of classes. I have even taken a class by Thomas Frank called Real Productivity, and it was very useful. And of course, there are classes to help you learn English, vocabulary, grammar, idioms, there's a lot. But when it comes to learning English, what I think is extremely useful is that you learn about something else in English. Learn about something you're interested in, maybe travel or technology or healthy living. And that way, you are developing your English skills as you learn about one of your passions. And right now, Skillshare has a special offer for all of you. The first 1,000 people to click on the link in the description will get a free 1-month trial of Skillshare so you can start exploring your creativity today. So click on the link in the description to get your free trial. Take some online classes with Skillshare. You can learn English and you can learn, well, just about anything else you would like to learn. Let's get back to those 25 major cities that are difficult to pronounce. And the next two cities are in California, so let's begin with San Francisco. San Francisco is a beautiful coastal city, and if we're talking about, well, that second word, the first syllable has the schwa, and that C is going to sound, well, more like an S, and that second syllable is stressed. San Francisco, San Francisco. Then we have Los Angeles. Los Angeles is another, well, very famous coastal city in California. It is referred to as the City of Angels. And again, in that second word, the first syllable is stressed. The G is going to sound more like a J, and the second and third syllable have that schwa sound. Los Angeles. Los Angeles. Then we have Boise, which is the capital city of Idaho. And Boise, 2 syllables. The stress is on the first syllable. But I think when most Americans say this city, they're going to pronounce the S more like a Z. Boise. Boise. However, locally, people may pronounce it with an S, and they may say Boise. Boise. Then we have Phoenix. This is the capital of Arizona. And as you can see, 2 syllables, stresses on the first syllable. That PH is going to be pronounced as an F, which is, it's pretty common in many other words in English. And you're going to follow that PH with the long E sound. It's almost like the O is kind of just omitted. Phoenix. Phoenix. Then we have Tucson, which is the second largest city in Arizona, just behind Phoenix. But, well, with this city, there's a silent C. You're not going to pronounce that C, and you'll just say Tucson. Tucson. Next is the city of Albuquerque. It is the largest city in New Mexico. It has 4 syllables. The stress is on that first syllable. The second syllable has that schwa, that alba. And then the third and fourth syllable, that QU, you'll just pronounce it with a K. Albuquerque. Albuquerque. After that, we have Sioux Falls. This is the largest city in South Dakota, and the name Sioux comes from the Native American tribe. Now, Sioux Falls, this is one where the pronunciation just does not match up with the spelling. It's almost like you have a silent I, an O, and X, but just listening to me say it, it's pretty simple, it's pretty easy. Sioux Falls. Sioux Falls. Next is the city of Houston, and this is the largest city in Texas. 2 syllables, the stress is on that first syllable, and it's almost like that first syllable you have like H, plus like you're just saying U. Hugh. Houston. Houston. Let's move to the capital of Iowa, and we have Des Moines. Des Moines, the stress is going to be on that second word. The first word, you're going to have that schwa, Des Moines. So in that second word, it's almost like you're dropping that ES. Des Moines. Des Moines. After that, we have St. Louis. So St. Louis is a major city in Missouri. It's right on the Mississippi River. And the first thing that I wanted to point out with this city is that ST abbreviation. So when you see this before a name, the abbreviation is for saint. You're going to say saint. If you were to see this after a name, well, then that abbreviation may stand for street. But in this case, we're talking about St. Louis. The other thing that I would say is that when you're saying this name, people often pronounce it as Louis, but in this case, you're going to say Louis, St. Louis. Let's move a little further south to New Orleans. Now, with this one, there are different pronunciations. I say New Orleans. So in the second word, I'm stressing that second syllable, New Orleans. Others may stress the first syllable and say New Orleans. And then with like a southern accent, you may hear people say New Orleans, New Orleans. But I think for many people in the United States, they would say New Orleans. And then there's Chicago. Chicago is, well, it's one of the largest cities in the United States. The first thing I want to point out with this city is that the CH, you're going to pronounce it kind of like an SH. It's not a ch sound, it's a sh sound. And the stress is on that second syllable, Chicago, Chicago. Let's move over to Mobile, which is a port city in Alabama. Now, I think Mobile has 2 syllables. The stress is on that second syllable, but I think this can be confusing because people might think of like a mobile phone. The pronunciation of this city is very different, Mobile. And that second syllable, you're just going to say it with the long E sound, Mobile, Mobile. And then we have Louisville, which is the largest city in Kentucky. It has 3 syllables. The stress is on that first syllable. And with this one, you are not going to say Louis. You're going to say Louisville. Louisville. Now, if you are from there, I think regionally, if you're from Kentucky, many people would pronounce it as Louisville. And they're going to say that second and third syllable with more of a schwa sound. Louisville. Louisville. Then let's go to Cincinnati. And Cincinnati is the largest city in Ohio. And both of those C's, they're going to sound like an S. That second syllable has the schwa, sin-sa. The third syllable stressed. And that fourth syllable has the long E. And also that final T, it is a flap T. So there's a lot going on with this word. Cincinnati. 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 Then let's go to Detroit. It is the largest city in Michigan, has 2 syllables. The stress is on that second syllable. And in that first syllable, even though we're spelling it with E, it's just going to sound like I. Detroit. Detroit. Then let's go south to Miami. Miami is a very well-known and famous coastal city in Florida. And the one thing I really want to point out with this is that it does have 3 syllables. Miami. Miami. The stress is on that second syllable. There are many Spanish speakers who live in Miami, and Spanish speakers may pronounce it as Miami. But most people throughout the United States will just say Miami. Miami. Then let's go north to Pittsburgh. It is the second largest city in Pennsylvania, and it has 2 syllables. The stress is on that first syllable, but I really wanted to highlight the end of the word, that GH. It's almost like you're just going to drop the H and you'll just say Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh. That's a little different than this next city, which is Raleigh. Raleigh is the capital of North Carolina, home to Duke University, very well-known university. And with this one, there's 2 syllables. The stress is on the first syllable, but again, it's that second syllable that I wanted to point out, that GH. It's really silent in this case. So you're going to pronounce that second syllable with the long E sound. Raleigh. Raleigh. And then we have Worcester. It's not really, well, perhaps a very famous city in the United States. It is the second largest city in Massachusetts behind Boston, which, that's pretty easy to pronounce. But I chose Worcester because, well, as you can see, the spelling and the pronunciation, they don't match at all. Worcester. It's almost like you're getting rid of the RCE, those letters in the middle of the word. 2 syllables, you just say Worcester. Even in the US, you have Worcestershire sauce. Worcestershire sauce. And that spelling is similar to this town, at least at the beginning, that first part of the word. So if you happen to be in Massachusetts and you're traveling around the state, then now you know how to say this city, Worcester. And then we have New York. It is the most populous and famous city in the United States. I think it's pretty easy to pronounce, but I included it because I just had to. It's so well known. It's so famous. I just had to include New York. But I'm sure you've heard it so many times before that you probably do not have any trouble pronouncing this city. I hope that you enjoyed the lesson and that you learned something new about pronouncing some of these major cities in the United States. Very useful if you happen to be traveling to the US or you live in the US, or maybe you're just having a conversation about one of these cities. If you enjoyed the lesson, please hit that like button. And in the comments below, let me know, are there any other cities in the US that you might have difficulty pronouncing? I'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. So long.